So I want to talk about whether doing a PhD is a job or not. So I asked this question on LinkedIn just this morning, and it is gone viral. Every once in a while you ask something or you do something on social and it just goes viral. So check that out. I think it's still up for a week. But it is an interesting question, and there's been sort of different viewpoints, and whether it's people put comments and things like that on there, whether it is, an apprenticeship or, whether it is a job or not a job. All of those kind of things are like really healthy answers. But one of the comments so far that struck me as golly, if there's not room for improvement there, somebody wrote that if you didn't get provided a minimal wage or enough wage to live, then it is not a job. And it's something that really struck me, because I think we all struggle with this. I'm past that stage at this point, but it's definitely something that I seriously still feel. And it's been imprinted in our family. In fact, a lot of what I do is in response to, that feeling of, how are we going to pay our bills? And that went on for a very, very long time. And not only that, but there is the fear of, the uncertainty that underlies that, it's never ending and there is no sort of out. And some people it actually is never ending until they decide to leave, academia, higher education altogether. And I think that this is becoming increasingly more so. And there is a transition that's going on at this moment where there is a blend of people recognizing the importance of these higher education degrees in industry. But there's still a dramatic pushback in academia against that is not the proper thing to do. That is it's stigmatized. Rather than viewing it as this is training, people view it as, training and you're going to get, if you went into Amgen, for example, well, shoot, nobody's going to argue that that's not a great outcome for the PhD program that you're at. Or you end up becoming a product manager at Facebook. Well, that's a great outcome for PhD students to end up doing that. But that would be considered, taboo. It would be considered, it's stigmatized in terms of people doing that. It's sort of hushed as oh, this is not the right thing to do. And we need to be a little bit more open. In my view, that this is a really important discussion to have. Maybe I'm very pragmatic. It's always been as part of growing up. My family didn't have a lot. My family did not go into, they didn't finish high school. Parents didn't finish high school, all that kind of stuff. And you have to be entirely pragmatic. And going into the PhD program that I went into, I was being pragmatic. I thought it was going to open up these opportunities. And it wasn't until about 2 years in that I realized that, no, that's not the way people view this. People view this as you got to go through the academic career and anything else is not kosher. So it's stigmatized to sort of even consider different outlets. And it's just really peculiar to view that. I understand why, right? As a professor myself, I understand why people get upset with that, because you do train. You spend a great deal of time and effort training different PhD students, and it is a lot of stinking work. And then on top of it, you have this sort of competitive dynamics or competitive pressures that you get within academia. It's a load of horse crap, but it's there. So you take those, and this is exactly why it's stigmatized, is that you take that as as a failure of your job, that you haven't done that, as you didn't do the right thing as a professor, that you sort of missed the mark there. And so both people are sort of feeling not great, but we need to sort of consider this in a more open way, and how do we deal with these situations? It's not entirely clear. That's why I'm a big proponent of sort of middle ground degrees that, like a DBA, for example, executive DBA, executive PhD, executive whatever, these sort of these middle ground programs that train people to go into industry. And so I think, in my view, is that every PhD program should have a corresponding executive program that is part of it, and it's tied together, so that, after a couple of years, you realize that I want to go into this different route. We're going to open up that possibility and allow you to go into that different route, and it's just going to be a different project. I think that is a healthy outcome, but it's going to be there's a lot of stigma associated with that, and it's going to be hard to do that. Stigma on both sides, right? Like, the PhD students feel like failures if they go into industry, which is nonsense, but it's part of it. It really is part of it. And then, the professors themselves, again, on their side, they feel like a failure. So there's lots of stigma associated with it, but we have to start being open and practical, pragmatic a lot more with, identifying these issues and what do we do in these scenarios and how do we treat this. The other thing that I think needs to be accepted more, but it's not, this is inherent within the tenure process of a penalty against it. And so universities have to recognize this, but golly, they're not going to recognize it because it's just not part of the system. Maybe in 30 years, maybe somebody will listen to this and say, hey, this is a great idea. But, tenure decisions need to be tied to, broader criteria. Anyway, sorry about that. It's important for us to think a little bit more creatively and be a little bit more open with it. And I know that it's going to take a lot of resources to do this, but I think we need to start addressing it slowly. Even just talking about it, providing information, destigmatizing some of it, and saying it's, this is a valid outcome. One way to do that is just have like simple career fairs at different institutions for PhDs, and promoting that. And I think that's going to be making a simple change that will go a long ways. And I think we need to address some of these issues, right? Because that person that commented at the beginning that I was telling you about in terms of livable wage is true. It's not a livable wage. You can't sustain yourself on that forever, and so you need to have outcomes, especially when the market is not great, right? Like right now, the market's probably okay for some folks, but it's probably not great for others. There's a lot of uncertainty. So that's the reason why I had trouble with, the year I was supposed to graduate was 2008. Like, hello. And the market did not clear until about 2012. And that's after a long time of, I was supposed to be on the job market in 2008. But, so, you have to be aware of these things, that the environment changes, and as well as saying that's viable outcomes and viable alternatives that we can choose. There's a lot of uphill battle in terms of what you're fighting, in terms of institutional norms, because that's not considered a research active thing to do. But we need to start considering it, to be honest. I think we need to leverage some of those opportunities that are available, and being okay with that is, good things. Those are good outcomes. If somebody went and worked at Amgen from your institution as a PhD, like, crap, that would be awesome, right? But we need to start opening up the conversation a little bit more. Again, sort of part of it's a little bit of part of a series of talking a little bit frank talk about academia and what we should do. So with that, thanks so much for listening. Just about at my destination at this point, and I appreciate you actually being here, listening to me. All right, take care. Have a wonderful day. Bye.